Mr. Soros, you're always looked at as one who has, played the markets at will and at many times managed to cash into it. However, my question to you is that the theory that you're talking about in many ways demands a whole lot of government interference. Now, why do you think government interference is an ideal thing, especially when we've seen a recession and the kind of recovery that we've seen? In many countries, the bounce back has been pretty strong, though probably slightly different in the financial and the real economy.
Well, because markets are inherently unstable, and if you leave them to their own devices, they are likely to go to excesses. And at that point, the authorities have to intervene and prevent those excesses from going too far, where they could endanger the stability of the system. This is particularly true with regard to credit and leverage. So there has to be some limits set by the authorities.
Are you optimistic of a real balance coming between the market forces and state intervention?
Well, the role of the regulators should be to exercise mainly through a free market. So you want to have markets as free as possible, because while markets are unstable, regulators are even more imperfect than markets, because they're subject to political influences. They can be corrupt, and they can be mistaken. So their role should be kept to a minimum. But what that minimum is a matter for debate.
So let me pick up the example of the United States. Now, in the United States, we're pretty clear that there is some recovery. But the kind of recovery we've seen in the financial markets, many would say is far ahead of what is truly being reflected. If you were to put this theory that you are propagating here at the INET conference about the United States, how would you piece the puzzle?
The United States is a very interesting situation as a reason. Because in opposition, the Republican Party has managed to convince the public that the financial crisis was all the fault of the state. Right. And the state is incompetent and should not be allowed to interfere in the economy. So, interestingly, the result of the financial crisis has been a renewed push for letting financial institutions free. And since they were saved by the intervention of the authorities, they are not once again players. A number of them have disappeared, so the industry, the banking industry, has become much more centralized, more like an oligopoly. Right. You now have maybe 4 banks in the United States that account for maybe 2/3 of all the lending, and so they have, and also they've been allowed by the authorities to earn extra profits in order to rebuild their balance sheets. So they have very, very good earnings. They've been paying very high bonuses, and they also have exercised quite some influence over the Congress in deciding how to change the regulation.
So you're essentially saying that this is going to be a jobless recovery, and that is not the ideal way of growth. And in many ways, the financial, numbers that are being reflected by corporate profits are far more bullish than what is the true picture. And in that sense, it doesn't seek to balance out what was the impact of the recession, where the worse off got worse, and the better off in the recession getting over have actually improved their wealth manyfold.
No, that is the case. Basically, there's been a refusal to increase taxes, because that would be reinforcing the government, and as a result you continue to have a very big budget deficit, and big pressure on wages and on earnings, and at the same time corporate profits are at a peak, and the balance sheet of the households has not improved very much, and the housing situation is still a shambles. In Europe, you now have two-speed Europe. You have got a big division between the countries that have a trade surplus and no great debt, and other countries that have had a big housing boom, which has left very big debts, and they are now suffering from the weight of that debt, and it's all the fault of the euro. And India is actually unusual because its growth is mainly domestic, generated, so it's less exposed to the global situation, less exposed but still exposed.